Wait. All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I am on the internet talking about music as usual, but also talking about hot sauce. This is a weird episode in the sense that if you've been listening to the show at any point over the past 8 years or so, you've heard me talking to a lot of musicians, and usually I'm talking to them about their music. I'm talking to them about new records that are coming out or big shows they have coming up, or just about a band's history. And this one, we're talking about music a bit, but we're also talking about hot sauce. And I think that this is kind of a fun way to branch out a little bit. I've done some shows in the past that have been about show posters, some that have been about music photography, and I'm always trying to find interesting ways to kind of talk about the local music scene and people who are in the local music scene, but then, go off in other directions. So I think hot sauce is, it's an interesting enough direction, and is definitely something that I don't talk about every week on the show. So I think the best way to kick us off is if the two of you want to introduce yourselves and what it is you do, and then we can talk about hot sauce and music and everything in between.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my name is Josh. I'm a musician, play in a bunch of local bands and some bands with artists from out of province. And I'm a part of Intergalactic Sauces.
Cool.
And I'm Dan. I just do Intergalactic Sauces now. I used to play music. That kind of fell to the wayside for a bit. And this is now my passion. Awesome.
Okay. And so, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but this started out as when I first heard of you guys anyway. I had obviously, heard of you in the music side of things, but the Intergalactic Sauces side was, I think I remember seeing things about pop-ups with the tacos you guys were doing at local shows. Is that right?
Yes.
We've done Metal Fest. We've done Metal Fest fundraisers. We did Chadstock fundraisers. Yeah. We did Chadstock twice.
We did a wedding social for friends of ours who the groom is in a local band. So music's always been a kind of a crossover for us.
We also did a sauce for local bands as well.
Oh, like a customized sauce for a local band?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So I guess why tacos, first of all? I know the hot sauce kind of grew from there, but what would inspire someone to just suddenly start selling tacos at shows? It's a great idea, but where does that come from?
I don't even know how it really started. It was like friends of ours were having a house party, and I was like, I want to cater it.
Right.
And I was like, let's do tacos. And I had just bought a smoker, so I was like, let's do smoked meats and like different smoked proteins. So we had like vegan options and all that stuff. And it kind of just grew from there, and like just doing house parties, house shows, and to eventually doing venues and festivals.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense, right? Because people are hungry at shows, and
absolutely.
Yeah. You don't really see that a lot. You have to walk across the street to Subway or whatever, or something like that, and you don't really get food you want at a show. You just what's open at 11 o'clock at night, right?
Yeah, and like we offered something that was like nice, quick, and had a somewhat healthy option.
Okay. So what is, I guess, your background then as far as food? Because obviously, someone can't just decide, I'm making tacos now, and just go about it, because it's not going to be good, right? So you guys obviously have a background when it comes to making food and preparing food and everything.
So both of us have spent a long time working in restaurants. We actually met working in a restaurant a number of years ago, and it was one of those situations where it was my first day, and so I was thrown on a prep station. Hey, this guy's gonna show you the ropes today.
Okay.
That guy was Dan, and he was listening to like Desert Rock Caius or something or whatever it was, and that's my bag musically, is a lot of that stuff. So we bonded right away over the music that we were listening to, and then I think specifically he was on a protein station, so like cutting up brisket and stuff. So then we started talking about food.
Yeah, and it all just kind of like snowballed from there, and then like eventually like we started working our way into the hot sauces, and I brought him on doing tacos and all that stuff, and it's become a great relationship.
That's awesome. That's what you want to have, right? Especially that you've had this experience working together professionally, as well as doing now this, which is like, becoming hopefully bigger than you would have imagined when you started it.
It's beyond.
Well, and that's kind of what I wanted to get into, because right now, the COVID pandemic, everyone is affected in some way or another. I've been doing this show twice a week throughout this whole time, and every artist I've talked to, they can't play shows, they can't tour, they can't rehearse, and they're finding other ways to kind of keep themselves busy and to make money. And I imagine that this has got to be part of why you're doing the sauce so heavy right now, right?
Yeah, that was, I mean, for me, that's been a huge part of it. I went from playing, 2 or 3 shows every week.
Yeah.
And having festivals in the summer and rehearsals and like just being immersed in that, to having it all just grind to a halt in March of last year.
Well, it's not even just the music too. Like all the restaurants.
Well, and the restaurants closed down. Like we were out of work for months at the beginning. So to have something to put our creative energies and our time into, and like just became this. Okay. We'd already been doing it, but that sort of allowed us to like
really hone in and focus.
Let's jump on this now, and then we're both in the music scene, so we've got a lot of friends and just people were finding out about it, and we find that like the majority of the people locally that are buying our sauces are either restaurant workers or industry people or musicians, so it's just been a really nice community thing to sort of fill the gap of not having shows,
not having anything, right?
Or anything for that matter. Yeah.
Well, and I guess there's a lot of crossover too in those two audiences, right? In terms of musicians and restaurant people, because a lot of musicians, most musicians I know have worked at restaurants at one time or another. Right?
Yeah. So, like the running joke is always that you can walk into a kitchen on your first day, and by the end of that shift, you've formed a band with the other people working in that kitchen, right? Like, because it's like you get to talking, and it's like, oh, you're a singer in this band, and this guy plays bass in that band, and like it's big time crossover.
There's like 10 drummers for some reason.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier. It's been great too, because the people that we work with, like we're responsible for the inside of the bottle, but the group of people that we have working with us who have been able to keep working, has been really great too. So like our artwork is done by, like for the first 4 bottles that we have, they're done by Harley out of Regina.
Okay.
Necrographics, and he's been part of the music scene there for years, and up in Prince Albert as well.
Cool.
And then like our layouts and all the graphic design stuff has been done by McKella here in the city, and like those people have just like been able to like really help us out and just really make our product pop.
Yeah, and then Scott Devine prints the stickers and the labels and did our shirts on both rounds of shirts. So like
when he's done my merch and he's been on my show too and talking about that side of things.
And he's the guy who you go to when you're in a band and you want that kind of, so like this is our merch, and we just went to the guys that we know from the music scene.
Yeah, and still allows us to like really like focus on the community. Like
Is it? I mean, obviously, the main difference is that you're working with food instead of playing a show. But I mean, it sounds like it's very similar in the DIY aspect of it, and that you're kind of putting this together with friends and with colleagues from the music scene. And there's obviously a lot of creativity that goes into it beyond just the flavors and everything. So, is it kind of using the same part of your brain as you would be using to promote a band or to
Absolutely.
100%?
For me, there's almost no difference other than the end product.
I feel like the one difference is like you can't be like, here's a link, check out my band.
Right.
You can't really like, someone has to.
They have to taste it, right? They have to physically.
Yeah. Well,
just pitch that sample.
It's the same way that, like you go to a record store, you see a CD that you like of a band you've never heard of, but the album art grabs your attention. So you're like,
totally.
I'm going to get that. And then you go home and you put it on and it blows your mind, or, so there's that aspect of it.
And I think that's, for me, that's why I'm so like proud of like the team that works behind the sauces.
Yeah.
Like behind the labels and behind the artwork. And they're so important to us. And like any artist that we commission to do like our specialty releases, we have Katie who did.
Yes.
The hot sauce really just fried my brain.
Well, she did the label for the band, right? Did she not? Katie Moonart?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, regardless, you're obviously getting high on your own supply right here with the hot sauce. But what I was going to say though is, I mean, like now that this is kind of picked up, which is hot sauce, first of all, it seems to be a thing, right? It seems like for whatever reason, hot sauce continually is popular. It's one of those things that people always want because people always want to eat, and people always want to be, trying to be as spicy as possible. And I mean, you're obviously the only people doing hot sauce in the city, and not even the only people with a connection to the music scene. I mean, I've had Patrick from 1882 fruit-based hot sauce on my show a couple of years ago, and he's putting out CDs on the side, and he's making his own, experimental music and stuff. So there's definitely a connection there for whatever reason, between hot sauce and the music scene. And so, I mean, are you hoping that once all this blows over, if it blows over, and shows start happening again and festivals start happening again, are you wanting to continue doing the taco thing and continue showing up at shows, or have things shifted now that you've been sort of just producing the hot sauce?
I would love to. I would love to keep doing that, because there's nothing more. It is like playing a show when we're setting up and it's go time.
Yeah. Well,
and we just have like a lineup of people and we have to just shell out these tacos. It's
like being on stage.
It's like being on stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And that'll come back around, and we'll get back to that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This may be a weird question, but I'm assuming your preference is going to be, you're going to say music, but I mean, do you get the same kind of joy out of this? Is it, I mean, I know, Josh, especially you've been playing music for so many different people and backing them up on drums for people at all different levels of success. And you've done festivals and tours and things like that. What is this kind of creating this and then having people taste it and like it and enjoy it and buy it? How does that compare to what you were doing in your main job?
It's very similar, honestly. Like,
I agree with you,
because it's, in the way that I used to get a set list and learn all the songs and then do the rehearsals and then have those jitters and those nerves and then get on stage and have everything kind of just fall away.
Right.
And then have the interaction with the crowd and come off stage and feel like that was awesome. It's very much the same with this. We're in the kitchen, we're making the sauce, and then we're letting it sit, and then we come back and we bottle it, and then we get all excited when the labels come in and we get those put on.
Every release is like playing a show.
Totally. And then once it's like, and then on release day, like, we're excited and we get it out there, and then we get the feedback from people, and it's very, very much the same
it's almost the same excitement as like when we release a specialty sauce, like when we do our one-offs, it is almost like an album release.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
Which that's how I feel, anyways. And I feel like every release, we're just like, here's a little piece of like what we like.
It's like putting out a single, right? Like,
right. Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it for sure. So, what is it about hot sauce? Like, I mean, why do you think hot sauce is so popular? I like it. I was very excited to get the samples you guys gave me, because I eat hot sauce on most things. But
people are insane.
It's sort of it feels like the same way that craft beer kind of came in.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
and it was something new and something different, and something where like every beer that you have from whatever brewery is going to be different and exciting, and so I think with hot sauce lately, like, the trend is growing that it's that new exciting thing to put on your food that isn't just the same stuff you buy at the store. And
it's not your mom's like Tabasco sauce.
Yeah, right. Not the generic bottle of whatever red thing you got. Yeah. Again, that's a good comparison, actually, the craft beer thing, because a lot of that stuff has the DIY labels and the interesting artwork and the experimental flavors and things like that too. So that's cool.
Like, I think about like Collective Arts from Hamilton, and I first discovered that beer on tour.
Okay.
And then and they do the same, like they have volumes of their beers. So like they're on number 14 or whatever, and it's with an artist, and it's a label, and it's a layout, and I get jacked when I go to the Grant or whatever, see a new one, and you look at the can, and you're like, this is awesome, and then you try it, and like,
it's a whole experience, right?
It's like the way we see it in like kitchens, and like when you're plating a dish, it's like people eat with their eyes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it, like he said earlier, it was like when you see an album art and you just like, oh, this looks sick, you buy it and you put it on your turntable, and it's mind-blowing. Usually,
like, anyway, right? Yeah. Usually if you made the right choice, you get
sometimes it's a miss, but
unless you buy the chronic, but the
it's censored.
The censored version.
Did you do that?
I did, and it's and we listened to it. It was still like,
it's awful.
It was so bad, but it was so fun at the same time.
I had a censored version. Can you remember when Smash came out, The Offspring? That album was so huge, everyone had it. And I got a used copy off a friend of mine whose parents, I think, had self-censored it. Like, they went in there and I like literally deleted all the swears on the tape. They went in on the tape and like with a double cassette recorder. So this was like this painstakingly edited version of the album, and I wish I still had it because it was actually pretty cool. The fact that someone had taken the time to not like read the lyrics and then go in and So it was
how meticulous,
yeah. It was annoying to listen, because you're like 14 or whatever, and you want to hear,
you want the swears,
exactly.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So one of the things I was going to ask about the hot sauce though is, I mean, doing this show as long as I have, I get the process of, when someone puts out a record and they want to get to the next level with that record, they want to get it distributed, they want to get it in stores, they want to do all of that, they want to tour with it. What is the next step with hot sauce? Once you've kind of, tapped out the local show music scene market, which I mean, that seems like where your fans are, right? But how do you kind of get bigger with a food product? And is it similar to the record business?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. So we've been on this round of sauces, we've been doing a lot of promo stuff. We've been sending it out to different people within the industry. We're looking at getting into brick and mortar. We want to get into stores. We've talked with a restaurant in town about doing like a wing feature.
Cool.
Getting it into a bigger market that way. And then
like, it's the same with like you send a record to get reviewed as well.
Yeah,
and like there's so many people who do hot sauce reviews, especially now.
Okay, that makes sense. I just never occurred to me.
Yeah, and so like you have them, they review it or they promote it if they like it.
Yeah,
etc. It's basically just getting it into as many hands as you can.
Yeah,
and like like your album
and shooting our shot was sending it out to like influential people, the same way that like I remember playing a show at the zoo one year, and one of the other bands found out that Ralph James was there that night and like gave him a CD like, hey man, check this out.
Yeah,
right. It's the same for us to be sending out to influential people and just see what happens with it.
Yeah,
right. And hopefully the right person loves it, right? The right person loves it, starts raving about it online or whatever, and then boom, you got a bunch of new. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The way I look at it in terms of that is if you look at Heartbeat and what they did with what's his name for UFC, the guy from
I don't know the name of
the States, but anyways, they developed a hot sauce just for him.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Because he found their hot sauce and loved it.
And that's how you do it, right? You got to find
Now they're just blown up, and I love it.
That's cool. Is there like a community of hot sauce makers? I mean, are you kind of in touch with other people doing basically craft hot sauce, if that's what you're calling it?
I mean, we're starting to like Canto and Saskatoon. We've been, we talk with them, and we did a podcast last week, whenever that was.
Last week, yeah.
And we've been gifted some sauces from a customer who was like, you need to try these. And she gave us a bunch of sauces from the States. And so we tried one of them and tagged them in our Instagram, and the guy like responded to us, and we ended up following each other. And now we, kind of chat. And so, it's very like, once again, it's very much like the music scene.
Sure.
Where, like, it's a close knit family, and we're brand new, kind of just coming into it. But
yeah, it's fun discovering all these small companies, because I didn't know a lot of them existed.
Yeah. Well, and that's the best thing about the internet too right now, is that like, every little niche hobby or interest has its own community. And I mean, like, hot sauce is like anything else, right? I mean, even podcasting in Winnipeg, we have this little community we've built over the past few years, and there's people doing all kinds of crazy shows that like I originally had no idea about. And now people get in touch and chat, and we meet once a month and everything. And it's like anything else. Yeah. Like there's a place online for any weird idea you have, whether it's hot sauce, whether it's, starting a record label, whether it's starting a band, a podcast, whatever, right? There's someone out there.
Yeah. And like finding those communities is really, really refreshing. Just to know, like, if you do have questions, you can again roll the dice and see if they can help you out.
Right. Yeah. This guy or this girl has done it already, and they've gone through all the stuff you've gone through, and they probably know how to. Yeah. That's good.
And I mean, like, even locally, my cousin just sold a relatively big business that they had in the city that grew quite big.
Okay.
So he like Prairie Box, like the meal service. So he's already done the DIY to expanding. So, like, he's a guy that we talk with about just what are the logistics of like what's our next step, or that sort of thing. So yeah, it's nice to have that.
Yeah, sounding board, basically, someone you can bounce your ideas off and pick their brains. Yeah, definitely. So, because I know we have been talking about music sort of throughout this, but because this is a music show, first and foremost, what are you guys up to right now as far as music? Obviously, the pandemic has put a wrench in all of this, but before, if it was a normal year, like what would you be doing, if anything, musically? I mean, Josh, I know you'd be busy, right? With
if this was a normal year, I would have just finished up Festival, the Voyager.
Of course, yeah.
This past summer was lined completely with out of town festivals, and we were signed on to a rodeo circuit, getting flown out to headline these rodeo shows, and Country Fest and these sorts of things. It's all been taken away, but one of the bands I'm playing with, we're doing an online show for a fundraiser for an event out in Alberta in a couple of weeks. So like, and we're going to do it like this same way, like through Zoom basically. So there are still, finally there's kind of stuff coming back.
Yeah, there's still avenues to perform, but it's just a weird different infrastructure, I guess.
Yeah, it's just, exactly. It's for the first time ever, it's going to be broadcast instead of us going out there and doing it.
Yeah. Do you foresee this, obviously, I hope, and I'm sure everyone does hope, that things are going to get back to some semblance of normality. But do you think that it's ever going to be the same, or do you think that we're going to be always like going forward now in a weird kind of alternate way of going to shows, whether that's some kind of social distancing or smaller venue, smaller audience sizes or things like that?
Yeah, I think it'll affect different venues and events in different ways. Like the bar scene, I think will come back sooner, because like the Park Theater is a perfect example, where they do their show, but you're in your row of seats, and that might still, I could see that being a thing for a while before people are allowed to mingle. But as far as festivals, it's really hard to say.
I don't see festivals.
I don't know how they'll pull it off. I don't see how it'll work.
Yeah, like I'm involved with with the folk festival, for example, and it's an ongoing discussion as to like, how is this going to look going forward. And I think everyone's having those same conversations. How do we, if we need to, how do we safely have people into our venues, and are people still going to come? I think they will. I think people are so starving for music and human interaction and that connection between the band and the audience, but it'll come back. It's just going to be interesting to see how. It'll be one thing I've always wondered too, and this might just be my like fantasy dream here, hopeful, wishful thinking, but I kind of hope that, because everyone is affected by this equally, I mean, not equally, but it's affecting everyone, whether it's, a band in someone's basement, or a band that's touring, or a band that's playing, arena shows, right? No one can play. So I'm hoping that there's some kind of weird offshoot of this that kind of puts everyone on a more of an equal level, because once everything starts back up, everyone's going to be kind of starting at the same time, basically from scratch. Not to mention all the new projects that started up over the pandemic of people who have all this music they want to do, right? So I don't know. What do you think about that?
I'm worried about the oversaturation.
Well, it's going to be interesting, because I think like it has leveled the playing. It's humbled a lot of people. Like I have friends who have been professional touring musicians for the last 30 years who are now finding themselves working like a normal job.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Kind of waiting for everything to level out. And then, I was in Long McQuaid a couple weeks ago getting sticks, talking with one of my buddies who's a drummer who works there. And he was saying like the amount of young kids that have come in over the last 6 months to get a drum set or a guitar or a piano, because there's nothing else to do. So they may as well learn. So there's going to be this weird like surgence of new kids coming, like new talent coming in, meeting with all of us old school, just trying to get back to what we were doing. And it's going to make for a lot of good music at the very least, right? Like there's going to be no shortage of people who want to play, and maybe it's going to be more backyard shows or properties outside of town having events, like who knows. But
it's really hard to say how this is going to affect things in the long run. I just don't want to lose more venues.
No, of course not. Yeah. Well, and on one hand too, like as someone who doesn't really like big crowds and loves backyard shows, on one hand I hope there's tons of that because they're great. but then on the other hand, that doesn't really make a lot of money for the artists. And you know, I mean, someone playing in my backyard is not going to be as worthwhile for them as you know, as professional musicians as it would be to play the Park Theater or play the, you know, wherever, right? Like the Pyramid or something.
Yeah, but I think it's also given an interesting opportunity for artists to connect very directly to their fan bases.
Yes.
Because you know, one of the artists I play with, we did she released an album and a single a couple months ago, and as part of the pre-sale, if they bought the VIP package, we invited them into a Zoom call.
Oh, cool.
That I sat in. So we like hung out with fans of hers from Arizona and Texas and Ontario and, you know, like all over the place, and we just hung out and like, hey, if you guys have questions for us, now is your chance. Like,
that's a really neat idea.
so there's
cool,
there is the whole like online Zoom show thing, I think it's made artists way more accessible 100%. Because they're all sitting at home, they're not playing arenas and big shows and big tours, but they still want to be relevant. So you are seeing maybe an artist that wouldn't necessarily be someone that you could talk to now being someone like the Dave Grohl and Nenshi.
That was drummer. Super cool. Yeah,
like, perfect example. Like, he's a good guy, but it might not have worked out for them to connect the way they did.
He just had the time. Yeah, he had the time to do it.
But he's like, he had to, you know, they shut down a world tour, and he's going, well, how do I connect with my fans?
Yeah.
So I think, it's not beneficial monetarily, but I think like on a
makes sense
to fan base, it's been great.
Cool.
And we'll see.
Yeah, well, I guess we all have to wait and see what happens. It could. It's completely unknown at this point. But
and look,
go ahead.
Like for Winnipeg, our numbers are gradually getting lower, which is nice. But like, obviously, everyone's got like their foot in the door, being like, okay, don't let it. But like I can see us having shows again at like the Park Theater.
Oh yeah,
like Josh was saying.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, which I'm really hoping for, because that's one of my favorite venues.
That's my favorite as well. Yeah, for sure. Great venue. And they did some shows. Like, I mean, I when the things first eased a little bit, they did a few shows, and I went to the Scott Nolan one.
And we went to the.
Which one? The first one. I went to the.
What was the first one? It was Votov.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we went to one of the first shows they did, and it was like, it was just. We remember saying to each other like, this is weird because we got to sit in a chair. We can't go to the bar ourselves, but is it ever nice to be watching a live band? Like, it
was great. Yeah. I went to the Scott Nolan one, which I think was the first one they did before they did that one. And it was really, really weird. Like, I feel bad saying it because I wanted to keep doing shows, but it was so strange, but I loved it. Like I was so happy to be out of the house and in a room with people all in kind of engaged in the same event together.
Yeah.
And, if that's how it has to happen, I'm cool with that as long as like it starts up again.
Yeah.
Like I went to the Vagina Witchcraft CD release. I went to the Fractal CD release.
Both those albums are amazing, by the way. Those are like killer albums.
Yes.
Yeah.
My local album favorites.
They were both on my list last year for sure. So back to the hot sauce though. If people want to find your hot sauce, what is the best way to do that? I mean, if they want to, whether it's order some or talk to you about, you know, tasting some or whatever, what's the best option to get in touch?
Our Instagram and our Facebook, just simply look up Intergalactic Sauces, and Twitter.
I started a Twitter just.
I'm not a Twitter person.
I started it for just connection reasons.
Sure,
but
it's great for that.
It really is. Yeah, it's a great tool. But like historically, Instagram and Facebook.
Yep.
At Intergalactic Sauces.
Send us a DM and we can set things up right from there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, like I tried some of these before we did this, and my tongue is still a little bit numb. So I'm kind of curious to listen back to this and see how much slurring I'm doing during the interview. But no, it's really good, and I'm glad you guys are doing it. I'm glad people are finding ways to stay active and stay creative and you know, just do things during this weird ass time we're in that are still worthwhile and still fun and interesting. So yeah, I'm glad you're doing this, and hopefully music comes back. But if it takes longer than we think, at least you got the hot sauce business going.
Yeah. I just want music to come back.
Oh, of course.
So,
but But I mean, we spend 4 hours a day doing deliveries sometimes, listening to music the entire time,
Talking about starting a new project,
and then talking about
Nice.
like the
Music
next
projects
the
we wanna
next
do.
sauce we're gonna do, or it's nice. Like we hand deliver, so we're getting out and we're seeing our friends, from down the driveway, like
Yeah.
so it's been good to connect with people that way too. Yeah.